Mitt Romney did publish a piece with us here called A New Course for the Middle East, and I just want to take a second to read an excerpt from it, the charges he was making against the president. He writes, "President Obama has allowed our leadership to atrophy. Our economy is stuck in a recovery that barely deserves the name. Our national debt has risen to record levels. Our military, tested by a decade of war, is facing devastating cuts thanks to the budgetary games played by the White House." And he went on to talk about the Arab Spring, for which he thinks the president doesn't have a coherent strategy. He said he's putting too much distance between us and Israel, and he criticized the Obama policy toward Iran. Covered a lot of ground. Do you think it was a legitimate critique?
Well, I think it was a legitimate critique, where I think you could, I do. I mean, I think it echoes some of the things we've written over the months about the Obama foreign policy. There is a sense in which American presence in that region is drifting, receding. There's a sense that we are receding from it. We're less influential than we were. You know, he should have, if I were him, I would have put a few more details on that. I mean, a good example is the president wasn't told when the Saudis essentially invaded Bahrain.
Yeah. I
mean, they didn't even tell him. And in part because they were so sore of the way he handled Mubarak, ousting him unceremoniously, as the Saudis thought. Yeah. Recently, there was the case where Joe Biden asked Prime Minister Maliki of Iraq, "Would you please stop allowing overflights from Iran to Syria?" Maliki said no. Well, why is that? Well, it's because we don't have any troops on the ground. Maliki feels he has no choice but to agree to what Iran wants. So there is that sense of us withdrawing in a weakness, and Romney's pointing to that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Paul, to see whether Jim Lehrer is able to avoid the subject given these ongoing demonstrations over the videos. We've got the U.S. and Afghan troops shooting at each other in the last couple of days. So I think it'll be hard to keep this subject completely off the table.
I hope he does stay away from it, frankly, because you've got one whole debate devoted to the subject of foreign policy and half of another one, the second one. And the Ryan vice presidential debate will probably get into foreign policy too. So I'd like this one to be focused on domestic policy. I think if you looked at, the Romney op-ed has got a big Twitter echo today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's got a big, I mean, a lot of the Obamaites are attacking it for lack of specificity. And that's a fair point. It doesn't have a lot of policy specifics. He's really talking about, Romney is improving America's strength and leadership, which you and I know is critical, utterly critical. It's a function of will and desire to some extent. It's a function of the strength of our economy on the other hand. It's a function of the strength of our military as well. But there isn't a lot of tangible detail in here. Maybe he'll put that in the speech he's planning to give.
Yeah, and I hope he gives it, and I think on domestic strategy as well, I hope that, to my mind, the two questions that Romney has not adequately answered in all these areas is how, I mean, he hits the right points, but the question then is, how are you going to do it, and why should we be doing these things?
Yeah, there's a kind of, his political method seems to be to state general statements of principle, but then not dig into the explanatory and get down there and be more credible on it in a way that people say, okay, I get it, rather than just school choice. Everybody should have a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why?
Exactly.
He needs the why.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul. We will be watching Wednesday.